Hey, welcome to Automation Notes. Brought to you by Doc Digitizer, the Automation Notes podcast is a collection of new and inspiring insights about intelligent automation. We'll discuss with the world's leading intelligent automation minds the most recent trends, success stories, and promising projects in the intelligent automation space. But before we dive into today's show, if you want to take your automation projects to an all-new level, leveraging critical data locked in your documents, photos, or emails, visit docdigitizer.com and find out how you can deploy the world's most reliable intelligent document processing platform in less than one day. Thanks to its proprietary technology using the most advanced AI breakthroughs in cognitive automation, natural language processing, and a built-in expertly designed human-in-the-loop, Doc Digitizer offers the world's first all-inclusive intelligent document processing platform. You can get 100% accurate data from nearly any document with close to zero setup and a full pay-per-use model all into a single API call. Whether you're looking to process a simple invoice, streamline your customer onboarding journey, or get data from your legal contracts, Doc Digitizer will be your trusted IDP partner. They also offer unusual features like handwrite support, complex table data extraction, fraud detection, and out-of-the-box integration with UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, and many other automation tools. So stop spending months getting datasets and training models to deploy an IDP tool, and then end up with costly human-in-the-loop data validation on every single document. Doc Digitizer offers an all-in-one, fully managed API, making intelligent document processing truly easy. But don't just take my word for it. Take the word of leading global 2,000 organizations, all loving and using Doc Digitizer to unlock hyper-automation over complex and unstructured mission-critical processes. Head over to docdigitizer.com and start your all-inclusive IDP journey. But it is now time for another incredible Automation Notes show.
Hello and welcome to our show. My name is João Fernandes, founder and CEO of Doc Digitizer, and I will be your host for today's episodes of Automation Notes. Brought to you by Doc Digitizer, the Automation Notes is a collection of new and inspiring insights about intelligent automation. And today we have as our guest Jess, the Intelligent Automation Program Director at Alberta Health Services. Jess, thank you very much for being on our show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the invite.
Can you share with our audience who you are and what you do at Alberta Health Services?
Absolutely. Yeah. My background's in IT. I've been in IT for 22 years now. I've done the gamut of technology stack to analytics, dabbled in AI a little bit, and certainly my primary focus is on automation. And so I lead the intelligent automation practice at Alberta Health Services. In the last 2 years, we've kind of grown the team from 4 people to 21. Plus, we have additional resources that support us, but making a lot of headway. A quick little background on Alberta Health Services. It's one of the largest companies in Canada. We have about 180,000 Active Directory users. We kind of cover the gamut of healthcare. We have buildings, about 700 buildings, probably 6,000 or 7,000 servers, and so the organization is quite large, supported by a team of around 2,700 people in IT. And the intelligent automation opportunities are endless, as you can imagine. And so it's been a lot of fun, kind of working with the organization, getting the program going, and kickstarting the initiative.
So before we drill down on that initiative, what drove you to get into intelligent automation? You mentioned that you come from software. This is like a trending field nowadays. But what drove you to choose to get into intelligent automation?
For sure, yeah. So I've always been interested in analytics, measuring things, and so when I worked in the technology stack, I did some analytical reporting. That reporting kind of got brought to the IT level, and so I was doing a lot of IT performance reporting. My team ingested data from probably 300 enterprise systems, and then created probably 200 different visualizations in Tableau. And so it became a bit of my team, became a great source of performance reporting dashboards, for IT. Then we kind of extended into the Connect Care program, which is Alberta Health Services implementation of Epic. It's about a $1.6 billion program. And so created a lot of like heavy analytical reports in terms of, areas that identified areas of opportunity. We would present them to the service owners in IT, and naturally the first thing they would say is, hey, we don't have capacity to fix this. We're busy keeping the lights on. And so that actually was what triggered us to invest in RPA. So the very first um, um, uh, our start really was looking at a dashboard, identifying a gap, and then building a single automation to automate a single task. And basically, like any organization, we're the scale and complexity and politics and change management and stuff. It takes time, and so we kicked off that. It probably took us about a year, maybe a year and a half, to kind of get that first automation going. And then the organization did a massive review, hired a UI financial review, took a look at the opportunities and said, hey, this automation thing is worthwhile investing in. So from there, they extended the program. We got some seed funding. The executive sponsorship really was kicked off at that point at the CEO level. And then from there, it's basically continued to grow.
And were that initial expectations? Because when you start to see some results, I think people start to become very excited, and they suddenly start to dream big. So were those initial expectations met, or there were pitfalls and some bottlenecks in the middle of the process?
Yeah. Well, the very first automation that we did was successful, but it was focused on getting something in, not providing a great return on investment. Okay. And that's one of the lessons learned. I think that is far too often these automation programs get kicked off. They set high expectations because everyone, they hear the news about intelligent automation, and it is that the promise is real. However, what people forget and what's missed in that discussion is the fact that initially teams don't trust technology. You know what I mean? Like everyone's got burned by software that didn't work or vaporware and those kind of things, and then an investment in something that didn't quite take off the way that they expected. And so, for me, I always recommend new programs. The first thing is find something that people just hate doing. That's half decently visible. That's operational. That inevitably, if it fails a little bit, you're not going to put people out of their out too much, and just get something in. And let people see the value of it. Let's let people kind of, start to, because really what you're teaching people is how, as managers, or both people and managers, both the staff and managers, I should say, you're teaching them how to work with a digital worker. You know what I mean? Like this manager has to learn how to work with human workers and digital workers, and then the staff have to work with digital workers. And it's not a big shift, but it's like when you're building a new team and new teams get formed, there's that storming stage, and that's what people underappreciate, is that OCM component. So I think getting something in, and then focusing on the return on investment after is key.
And you mentioned the IT, that this initiative came from the IT, and you probably along the way end up involving much more stakeholders. Do you think they all have a common, let's say, perspective on intelligent automation? Because some of these stakeholders may be a little bit skeptical, and you mentioned the IT was not, which sometimes is a surprise for me, because a couple of episodes ago we were talking exactly about the clash between the business people that want automation and they just want no code, quick and dirty, and the IT being afraid of this kind of shadow IT, which sometimes RPA is. So what is your thoughts about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest resistor a program is going to see is probably from within IT. Yeah. And in the context that in many organizations, and it depends on the organization. If you're in a software development company, the IT department is probably going to be a bit more agile. But for most of the Fortune, hundreds, whatever you want, a classification you want to look at, but the larger organizations, the people in generally speaking, decision making levels are there, and they've been trained and they've been hired to be somewhat change resistant intentionally, because they don't want to put the organization at risk. And so there are layers of organizational and behavioral barriers that prevent innovation by design, because they want to keep things stable. And so, for me, I think of it as not people being resistant to change, but the organization being resistant to change. And frankly, that's a good thing. And so when you're implementing a new program, at least in our case, um, certainly we did, we found some excited business stakeholders. Well, first we worked on executive sponsorship, which happened at the top. Unfortunately, because of this review and the program, the way the program was kicked off, we got top level executive sponsorship, which helped. Number two, we had some business department owners that were basically super supportive, and so we kind of got the work kicked off in HR. We finance has been super supportive, and IT, frankly, has jumped on board, and so I think having the executive sponsorship and the business sponsorship helps IT kind of removes the barriers in IT, privacy, risk, and all these other areas that are actually designed to make sure that what they're doing is natural and the right thing to do. But working through them and educating them, I think is OCM is the biggest part of the program.
So you were mentioning about having not only this vision that automation is poor based on technology, but also the human factor and all the change management that needs to take place. And fortunately, I think nowadays most of the vendors end up making available a lot of frameworks that allow companies to be much more faster in increasing maturity on RPA, for example, which were not the case a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
where most of the companies were raising their maturity by trial and error. So
Yeah.
I think nowadays it's easier to implement and to reach a certain level of maturity. You mentioned Blue Prism. What kind of technologies do you use currently?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So we use the Blue Prism software, obviously for RPA. We use Blue Prism Process Intelligence for
Mhm.
process mining and task mining. We've been dabbling in that, having a lot of success, which is exciting. We're also using obviously a ton of different website development. And so, in the context of like simple forms, we've kind of up till now chosen to do C#.NET web apps. Now, the reasoning behind that is I've got the skill set in my team. Number two, the infrastructure costs are quite low in the
Yeah.
context of the fact that naturally, we can host multiple websites on an IIS server. And number three is the code reuse. And so and the reason why the code reuse is actually high is because for our ETL processes, we use SSIS, the SQL Server Integration Services. And so my team, I find I can hire a lot of C# developers. And so we've got the C# code working both on the SSIS packages and being scheduled and automatically doing our ETL processes. And then we often can use the same API calls and all this other stuff on our websites. And then so it's been a nice kind of opportunity to be able to schedule automations to be supported by ETL processes using SIS, and then have data collected from the website. So that's another couple of technologies that we use. Certainly, I think the other areas, Blue Prism Capture, to actually work with the business, identify the business process that we want to automate as part of the PDD process, and more importantly, discern that how much time that it actually takes to manually do that task, which obviously is a key measure. I mean, that's the only measure that matters. Second to how many queue items are we processing, and so as part of our benefit realization framework, that's a key measure. And so capture is really the only tool I can think of and that we've found to actually allow us to actually discern that in a way that can be justified to the business. Um,
And
so go ahead.
and I was just sharing that it's amazing to see that nowadays the intelligent automation toolkit is much more than straight RPA. You have there C#, you have their process mining, which means that it's like a very wide toolkit with a lot of different stuff that you can use, right?
Very much so. Yeah, yeah. It's a patchwork of technologies because there isn't one that actually does that works for every step in the process. And so, yeah, I mean, I think going through the technology stack is an important step, and really after any PDD to kind of get before you. Frankly, we try and do it as early as right in the beginning of the process. So yeah, so we've got obviously the RPA technology, the API integration through our C#.NET development capability, ETL, SSAS, analytics is Tableau. So our organization is a fairly heavy Tableau user. The AI we've dabbled in. We've of course with SQL Server you can actually schedule Python code, and so we've done some testing and actually been successful in actually running machine learning algorithms on it as part of our ETL process, and right within our jobs, which is exciting. And then lastly is two areas that we're working to extend is chatbots. And so in our organization, we're a heavy ServiceNow user. And in addition to that, we're a heavy Teams user. And fortunately, both of those have chatbot capabilities. And so we're just in the process of getting some training from Microsoft to look into Teams chatbots. And then ticketing, like I mentioned, ServiceNow. So we're automatically creating tickets in ServiceNow. We've just, I think in the last couple of weeks, gone through the process of getting API access. We can actually query tickets in ServiceNow, find tickets that we can automate, update tickets that we've automated, and then close the tickets naturally. And so that's the next kind of foray. And then lastly is computer vision and the IDP stuff. And so we've got 3 technologies in our organization that do OCR, and we're currently looking at a handwriting scanning technology.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have endless opportunities for automation. So I'm very curious to know, how do you prioritize them, and how can you choose the ones to invest in, and then how to track the benefits that you get from deploying automation? Can you share with our audience a little bit about your framework to do this?
Absolutely. So the prioritization activities is a bit unique. In our case, the automations are completely business driven. So every business area has an automation champion that the department head assigns, and the automation champion or champions, in some departments they're assigning 3 or 4 or 5 different people to play that automation champion role to work with the business to collect ideas within their own department and kind of work through the OCM pieces, the comms, the project planning. And so as we get those automation champions trained up, they collect the automation opportunities, and then ultimately they prioritize the automation opportunities at the department head level, and then submit them to the governance committee, our automation steering and oversight committee for prioritization. By the time that they get to the ASOC, for the most part, the automation steering and oversight committee approves almost all of them, and so at that point they come to my team. And another unique part is that the estimating tool that we've built, which is frankly in Excel, allows all the automations in a department to be collected. And so we've got every single column being a different automation opportunity. You can see all the automations, what their payback period is, and take a good look at the return on investment. And then they get prioritized by the business. And by the time they come to us, the cost is automatically calculated for my team. So we don't need to do any costing. The team literally they've got all the information they need for the ROI. And they at that point, the business has said it's a priority. ASOC has said it's a priority. And then it comes to my team and we're ready to rock. We just automate it.
Fantastic. And what kind of, I'm very curious. You were talking about champions, and those people are business folks, right? Are people that don't know the technology. So what kind of training do you provide them so they can be autonomous in spotting these opportunities and structure them?
Yeah. So we've got basically an onboarding basically a user guide that we've developed for the automation champions that includes training on Blue Prism technologies. We do review. We've got some slides that we've created to actually build a little bit of awareness, and so it's peripheral awareness of what the technologies do, but knowing that RPA can mimic the work that people do by interacting with screens. APIs interact with applications using code, and having just that, even that peripheral knowledge, allows the teams to kind of get directionally at least a little bit of sense of what they can do. Secondly, during the presentations with the business, the automation, our COE basically provides training and the ability to actually have us involved in these sessions that the automation champions schedule with the leadership, the management, and potentially the staff, depending on the department. And so we've got slides, we've got the ability to attend, and we also have Blue Prism who basically comes in and actually helps us to collect those automation opportunities as well. And so it really does depend on the department, and as you know, every department kind of has their own culture and their own way of doing things. And so, some of the newer departments that we've been working with, we're engaged fully throughout. Some of the more established departments, they've got their own people that are doing this, and we're fairly hands off. And so, I think from a methodology perspective, it works really well because you do need to respect that every department is different. And secondly, I think having the brunt of the business analysis work actually occur in the business benefits you. Number one, by taking you out of the politics. Number two, by offloading some of that resourcing and allowing the automation team to actually focus on automation.
And gets at the end gets their buy-in also for the transition they need to take. You already touched a couple of angles about your automation program, but I would love to know more about, is there any best practice to set up a program like yours? What kind of advice can you give to our audience if they are looking to set up a program such as yours?
Sure. I would suggest start small. Start with one automation that, generally speaking, can go down, and if start there and kind of develop that capability. Work within the business to collect more automation opportunities. Start with one department. Potentially even. My dog is making a ton of noise in the background. I assume you can hear it.
No.
Yeah.
Please don't automate your dog.
Go upstairs. You're snoring too loud. Go. Hey, go in that room. Okay. Sorry, we'll have to restart that question if that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sure. There are many people nowadays trying to build their own center of excellence or automation program. So is there any tip that you can provide to our audience about the best practice to set up one?
Yeah, no question. So in our organization, we relied heavily on the Blue Prism realm. The nice thing is they've got a whole series of templates. They've got a process. And I think starting with that is a good way of actually implementing some best practice, and then modifying it as time progresses. And so you can probably start with their templates. And in our case, we took their templates and then created AHSized versions of those templates. That's probably what I would suggest at a macro level. But the short answer is start small and start with the least amount of bureaucracy and templates and PowerPoint, and all these things that you can. And so, and the way to do that, I think, is by looking at what other people have done, get some use cases, pitch it to a business department, and start with one automation with one person with potentially some basic infrastructure. Find something that can go down so that makes sure to give you a little bit of room, and a lower sense of urgency, and prove some value, and then extend from there. And so I think minimum viable product is pretty key from a mindset perspective, and so that's what I would recommend, and that's how we took it. We started with one,
which sometimes is very hard because as business people start to become more excited, the MVP starts to get scope. So
that's right.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
So you already mentioned that intelligent automation is much more than RPA, and there's quite a few trends nowadays. What are the main trends that you think will significantly change the intelligent automation landscape and move it to much more than RPA in the near future?
So I think the future of RPA is actually process improvement. And so I think as these technologies start to realize the opportunity, they will shift focus to process improvement and allow change their their tool set, so that process improvement people can use their tools to record the process, and build kind of that and integrate with a BPM, and allow them to actually see the end-to-end process. And then that will enable the intelligent automation practices to quickly grow, because they'll have at that point an established list of processes that the organization has, and potentially even capture kind of screen captures of all the different steps in the process, which then the automation people can look at quickly and say, yeah, there's a good fit here from step 3 to 7. Let's automate just that piece. And then the business is very clear that of what they're doing. The automation programs have a very clear scope and the ability to actually discover these processes and catch it in. And so I think for us, the win is on getting the process improvement resources in the organization on board, to actually create and document processes in a standardized method, and then using that information and data to actually drive the automation practice. Which, in the case of BPPI, I think the numbers that I had heard was 7 to 10% of the opportunities that are identified by documenting processes are areas that we can jump into from an intelligent automation perspective. And so, I think that's at least that's the approach we're trying to take, is moving to more of a data-driven approach, using BPPI, using by educating the end users on the use of capture, and trying to create that standardized mechanism of actually documenting the processes. And then at that point, we can flip it around and actually look at those processes end to end and say, hey, which pieces make sense to actually automate.
Fantastic. It's much more than automating the process as it is today. It's like using this kind of technology to transform your processes and make them much more efficient. And I think process mining is helping a lot on that sense. But there's a lot of tools nowadays to help companies to do that at scale and to collect data, which is always good to make wise decisions. I always like to end the conversations asking our guests for a suggestion of a book, a podcast, or a person they can follow to know more about these kind of topics. So, what are your suggestions?
So yeah, I mean, there's many different resources online. I think the Blue Prism ROM I would definitely check out. Certainly UiPath and Automation Anywhere has some great resources that are available online. The Transform Now podcast is really good. WonderBots has a great podcast, which I would check out. And so, yeah, I mean, if you look at all these different sources, in terms of networking, any type of conference that has intelligent automation, and I think that's one area for everyone out there, that if you've got a conference on intelligent automation, definitely keep me in mind. I'm always interested in speaking. But I think user groups that are on Meetup. So we've got a Western Canada RPA user group that I founded, which has exactly the same kind of knowledge sharing. And this podcast is great. And so, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different sources out there, but I think the more the merrier. It's all a volumes game to basically collect those, learn about what people are doing. And, I had one podcast where Reveal Group was kind of talking through their this IDP solution. And we started, I was like, hey, it kind of does make sense to actually, maybe there'd be some value in handwriting scanning. And so, that kind of tweaked me. And then we started looking into handwriting scanning solutions. And, I think there's so many people doing such great work out here that we can leverage and mimic, frankly, in a flattering manner. And so, yeah, I mean, don't do rework. I mean, look at what other people are doing and leverage it for sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. What is next for you and Alberta Health Services? And how can our audience reach out to you?
Sure. So I think the next steps for our program are really to like I just mentioned, find an IDP solution that we can use that works well with handwriting scanning. So in our organization, we have around 17,000 forms, and almost all of them are PDF. And so working through, scanning those in, and I guess obviously scanning is a big piece for the patient-facing forms, and then digitizing for the internal forms. That there's huge opportunity, and I think the other nice thing about form automation is that it's known scope. Here's a form, and here's the system it goes into. And so versus many other forms of automation where you're working with potentially 300 or 400 people, all of them doing things different. As you can everyone has seen that spider web kind of what the actual process is in context to what the published process is, which is maybe 3 or 4 steps, and the extra effort that it takes to actually go through and implement an automation in at the same time as process improvement. It takes way more time.
Yeah.
And so, I always like to, don't get me wrong, like I'm a fan of process improvement. However, process improvement takes months, if not years. Automation should take weeks, you know what I mean? Maybe months. And so shortening your duration is pretty important just to get value quickly, which that's one of our top principles is actually enacting value in a sense of urgency, right? So so that's certainly a short-term goal. Secondly is getting all of our different software solutions upgraded. So we're working through the upgrade on our Blue Prism environment to 7.1.2. Process intelligence, and so the BBPI solution we've implemented specifically for Oracle financials, looking at our purchase requisition to PO to invoicing process. We're also kicking off a pilot basically for ServiceNow. And so working through the access and all the kind of the techie stuff and the behind the scenes to make that happen is another priority. And then really extending our reach from the departments that are on board from, the 8 departments that we have onboarded right now in our automation program, and branching it out into the clinical areas. Our initial focus was corporate. Now we're transitioning to clinical, which I think is another important shift because we're a healthcare organization.
Yeah. So you have a lot of challenge for the upcoming months. So but Jess, congrats. It was really a pleasure to have you on our show. I think you shared a lot of juicy advice and tips for people that are looking into building a program such as yours. So thank you again for chatting with me and for being on our show.
Thank you. Yeah, and if anyone wants to reach me, they can simply just email Jesse, Jesse, .tutt, TUTT, @ahs.ca, or reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, Jesse Tutt, Tutt Jesse, or Twitter, Jesse Tutt, or Facebook, Jesse Tutt. And so just Google me and you'll find me. So
you are pretty active on LinkedIn. So yeah, people should follow you. Thank you very much again. I've been your host, João Fernandes, and this has been Automation Notes. See you next time.
Wow, what a fantastic show. So many incredible takeaways. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to stay updated with the most recent intelligent automation trends, success stories, and promising projects, please subscribe to Automation Notes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and YouTube. You can find the links in the subscription. We release a new episode every 2 weeks. But before we leave you today, if you want to take your automation projects to an all-new level, leveraging critical data locked in your documents, photos, or emails, visit docdigitizer.com and find out how you can deploy the world's most reliable intelligent document processing platform in less than 1 day. You can get 100% accurate data from nearly any document with close to zero setup and a full pay-per-use model all into a single API call. Whether you're looking to process a simple invoice, streamline your customer onboarding journey, or get data from your legal contracts, Doc Digitizer will be your trusted IDP partner. Doc Digitizer offers an all-in-one, fully managed API, making intelligent document processing truly easy. But don't just take my word for it. Take the word of leading global 2,000 organizations. all loving and using Doc Digitizer to unlock hyper-automation over complex and unstructured mission-critical processes. Doc Digitizer is helping companies across multiple industries to reach their full potential through data by empowering their digital transformation, driving operational efficiency and human productivity, unlocking the power of their data.